Good afternoon, morning, or evening, whenever you're watching this. Just hope it's good. Today we're going to be doing another install video, putting some much needed upgraded suspension on my 3rd Gen 4Runner. Let's get into it. So here is some more budget suspension that you can get for these 3rd Gen 4Runners. A lot of people run these. Is the Bilstein 5100s. So here are the rear struts. That's the part number. Then I'm running the Old Man Emu Coil Springs. These ones are the 891s. 2 is just indicating that there are 2 of them in here. So these are the only thing that we need for the rear. For the front, again, the Bilstein 5100s. Here's the part number for those. These have little perches and they come in the coils. I also got some top hats for them. Here are the information for that. And then just using the same Old Man Emu coils, not the same, but the 88 ones. There's 2 of them there, but I already had these put on. One of my buddies did this at a dealership. If you can get it done at a shop, much preferred because it is a lot more safe. But you can get the rentals that pull these springs together and put this nut on. I did the new top hats. You can use the factory ones, but I just want to keep my old suspension in place. So I have already gotten started here. I jacked up just the back end. I'm going to do back first and then front. Here are my jacking points for that. Just on the frame rail right before this arm mount, and same on the other side. Put these tires under there just for some extra safety. And I've already removed the sway bar end links. These are just like a 12mm bolt holding it on top, just like this. And then I've already removed the mount for this arm. It is free floating. And then also a brake line, as you can see that little disconnection right there. That was also 12mm. This was a 17. I've already taken out the springs. Here's the spring perch. And then I've taken off the shock. That shock is a 17mm bolt too on the bottom there. I also cleaned up these perches for the springs with just a wire wheel, and then use some rust reformer on it. I'm doing this entire suspension lift and just suspension upgrade because I've been running spacers about 2 months after I got it, since 2 months after I got it, and these are just not doing it for me. It's a very squishy ride and my headlights are floating all over. Let's get to taking off this top strut. So, taking these off is pretty difficult. There's only a really small space where this guy, well, the body sits in between this and this guy, goes on top, and then the nut goes on. This is a 14mm bolt, so all I did was put my 14mm socket on there and put a ratchet on there, and then I just use some channel locks to pretty much grab this other side, because if you just spin the ratchet, the whole entire shock will just spin. And this is free to spin too, so you can't really keep the bolt in. It will still spin, so I just pretty much flattened that and held it with these. I should have just probably cut it, honestly, at the tip there. But there's that. Where it mounts in up and in there. Let's see if we can get it. Yep, it's right there. Here's the shock mount. It's the spring mount. It is pretty close to right there. And what you have to do is like feed your hand in over this and get that ratchet in there. It's really difficult. And this is just like full of crap. Like you can just see it's coming out, so I'll have to clean that out too. And then put the other ones in. I do recommend hitting all these bolts with PB Blaster or just some kind of penetrating fluid to make them easier, especially on these old 3rd gens. This is a 2002 and it is just super rusty. That's the newest year that they made the 3rd gens. So I cleaned out those shock mounts and they were just full of dirt. There's little holes in them to channel out water, but it looks like it was getting blocked by dirt and stuff. So there's that. And then I also just used that rust reformer on a couple of other spots where the end link meets, and then the shock mount too, and tried to get inside of there, but it's pretty tight, so it's hard to get there. Okay, so this is how I've been getting, well, I got the springs out. Here's just the bottle jack from the car. It's just right under the passenger side rear seat. And then this guy just spins to go up and down. So I've just been going on this bump stop, just making sure it's really secure the whole time to get the spring in and out. So I'm going to move the spring in there. I cleaned up just the stock shock bump stop right here, and then put it on the coil, and then we're ready to put this guy into there, but it's going to be a little bit difficult. We'll do it though. Alright, that guy's in there. Not too difficult. Just got to be really careful with that bottle jack. It is sketchy. Just do everything at your own risk. I have no responsibility. But these springs are actually really nice because if you can see, they actually get smaller in their wraps, so they are non-linear spring, and this just makes them perform a little better. There are specifics to where it goes on at the end. There's a little perch, well, the shock perch kind of supports the end, if you can see it in there. There's a little step right here that the thing goes against. So we'll get the other one in and then put the shocks in. Okay, I've gotten every bolt back on, the sway bar end links, that bolt, the brake line little bracket, the springs are in, the shocks are in. With these I just put on this bottom bolt. I'll share a picture of how they're supposed to go. This on the bottom, you're supposed to reuse the spacers that it had, and then I'll post the top too, but I just put on the bottom first, lined up the top with the holes, with the hole, and jacked it up, and then just did the same information there. For bolting it down, I just went until the shaft span. I just pinched this boot and felt it spin when I was tightening the top one. And now I think we can throw the wheels on and then go to the front. I do just quickly want to mention that the sway bar end links are going to be too short. I will look at the condition of the front ones. These ones are pretty shot in the back, but the fronts can go to the back, and then the rears from a second gen 4Runner can go on the front. So we'll do that. And there's also correction for the back bar that we took the bolt out of. That's supposed to be a certain angle, and I might buy that weld-on kit to fix that angle of that bar, because when you go up with the axle, I guess it'd be down with the axle, it just changes the angle on that. Alright, it is a few days later, and we're getting to the front. I actually took this camping with the rear lifted and the front non-lifted, and it wasn't bad at all actually. But I knew this would lift it, but not as much as it did because I already had the spacers on there. I wasn't expecting too much of a lift, but it does give it quite a bit of gap, so we'll have to get some wheels and tires soon, or do something to the wheels and get new tires. But now we can move on to the front. This is going to be pretty simple. We just need to jack up from the middle, cross beam, and then get those struts off. Here is a quick comparison of stock versus the new stuff. These coils came out pretty easily, but here's the old stock ones. My car has about 200,000 miles on it, so. And then you can see the spacer that I had on it that mounts with those, and then the new one, just so much cleaner and ready to go. They're actually pretty comparable on sizes. They're lined up to the top right now, and this new one's probably 1/4 inch longer. But they're gonna ride so much better. This shock's like shot, and the spring isn't very good either. But putting them on is the reverse of taking them off. Use the same technique to take them off, but just this is the stock jack, and it can just go in between the fender and the upper control arm. This is not very safe and I do not recommend it, but it's the best that I have right now. You can otherwise take off the ball joint down on the bottom lower control arm, and that's a pretty easy thing too. It's just 4 14mm bolts, and then make sure when you put those back on that you use red Loctite and torque them to 59 foot-pounds. Alright, these are in. I definitely recommend just taking off that bottom ball joint on the lower control arm with the 4 bolts. It's so much easier than using the jack, and it's a lot sketchier. I'm considering getting some new upper control arms with some new ball joints all around. Then also some sway bar end links like I was talking about, the 2nd gen rears fit. Also, a lot of people do the diff drop in this, but I don't think I will because it only drops the front of the diff, which just kind of corrects the angle on the CV here. But it doesn't correct it very much, and it's only like an inch drop, and it rotates your diff, which I don't like too much, so we'll see how it goes with this. If we're blowing a lot of axle boots, then maybe we will do that. I have a little bit of a leak, so I'm going to kind of diagnose that, throw the tires on, torque them to spec, and then lower her down. It looks like I do have a little leak, but it does look like it's coming out of the drain right there, so we can service the diff and just do a new fluid change and make sure that O-ring on that's good, because I don't think it's coming out of this seal right here, but it might be. Let's just go over the sway bar end links real fast. I got some new ones here. These ones are just from Rock Auto, pretty much the cheapest. This is going to go on the back. They were fronts for the 3rd gen, but these are actually longer. I'll throw a picture up of comparing them. And then these ones are from the rear on a 2nd gen 4Runner. And these ones are not greasable, but they're all in order, and I already took the top bolts off here in the rear, and the front is done. It's just a lot harder to see. I still have the wheels on, and we'll just have to take off that bottom and pretty much reattach. All pretty simple. I was gonna end it there, but I just got a package in, so let's show you that. And I'm also gonna just quickly take off the side skirts. I don't use the step in them, and it makes it look taller when it's not there. Here's what I got in. These are the lower ball joints. Here's the passenger side part number, and then also the driver's side. The calcel nut and cotter pin is included, and just some new bolts for it too. I just recently got scared about these because they fell, and it's pretty catastrophic at around 200,000 miles. Putting suspension on also increases, a lift will increase the stress on this joint. We just added some, and my car's a little bit over 200,000. I went OEM, and that's the only way to go on these because I've heard really bad stories about the rep stuff that is a lot cheaper, but we can go ahead and throw these on. I guess that's also a decent time to mention that I did replace the CV axles and take care of my front transfer case leak. You may be able to tell, but it's a different day, and that's because we got some new outer tie rods. I just got new ones because those old ones were a huge pain, and I ended up breaking lots of 3/8 adapters and just lots of things that were 3/8. So I just got some new tie rods, and we'll be putting those in with the ball joints. Here they are. I got AC Delco, but really they're just reboxed Senke 555s or 555s. I'm not sure what they go by, but you can tell they're made in Japan. Here's the info for driver's side, and then there's the passenger, and they come with all the hardware needed. It even comes with the jam nut, which I'm surprised about. Now these are on cardboard because I heard that they rust a lot, and we are going to paint them up real fast. Well, not necessarily paint, but we're just going to do a little coating. I'll show you that paint and kind of speed through that. I already did a light coat with this Napa Chessie Black. This was recommended to me by another YouTuber by the name of Austin Nimella, and you should check out his stuff if you really like mine. But we're just going to do just like 2 light coats on this, and then we're going to follow it up with some of this stuff. It's like a wax that dries. It's really good for undercoating. I've done it on my skid plates and I've liked it so far, so we're gonna continue the trend and do them on these. I did a lazy taping job here just because threads are really the thing that suck the most when they rust, and it's kind of inevitable because we need the bolt to go on there, but it is what it is, and we'll just have to get after it. Alright, those tie rods are done and lower ball joints, but let's go over some of the height differences right now real fast. In stock suspension saggy form, the front came in at about 34 inches to the fender, and then the rear was at about 33.5 inches to the fender. After the spacer lift that I installed, the front was right under 35.5 inches, and then the rear was right around 34.5 inches. And then now the new suspension is at 35.5 inches in the front, and then the rear is at about 36 3/4 inches. I had a pretty destructive day getting those. Well, this one was for getting the lug nuts off, but everything else is from breaking when I was trying to get those tie rods off. I want to give a huge shout out to Tecton. I'm nothing special, and I just filled out a little form when I broke this, and they just sent me a replacement, no questions asked, and I even bought this one on Amazon, but they just sent a replacement. So if you want some tools, I highly recommend them. So there it is. The suspension is definitely settled. We gained some height in the rear, even past the spacer lift, a little bit over 3 inches. And then in the front, we didn't gain any space from the spacer lift, or compared to the spacer lift, but we did gain some space compared to stock. There's a lot more travel in this suspension setup now too. I've actually been off-roading and it does do very well. I like it a lot. I would highly recommend this, especially for the price. It's okay that it is raised in the back because when I put gear in it, it can settle a little bit. I'd rather have that than having a bunch of rake and the front higher. Sorry for it being dirty in the shots, but you know, it is what it is, and it's gonna rain, so I didn't want to wash it. But it looks good, I think. And I definitely recommend doing those just small maintenance things to the suspension. And then also those side skirts made a big difference on the overall appearance. Okay, thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time. Like and subscribe if you would like.